Hello, Kratom Kickers. This is episode 4, and I'm Charlie. Today we talk to Jess. She's the founder of quittingkratom.org, which hosts 2 online meetings a week and a WhatsApp chat group. Jess's story shows extraordinary resilience and is something many of us can relate to, as she relapsed right before reaching a year clean, but came back stronger and continues to help many of us struggling with kratom. Personally, I am celebrating 60 days kratom free. Just several months ago, I was struggling with a $100 a day habit that I couldn't stop, hooked on the OPMS black shots. Before I was able to quit, since Thanksgiving last year, I had 3 failed quits of 5 to 7 days only to use again, and too many day ones to count. It was hard, but it is possible to get off the green sludge, and it is much better on the other side. So if you're thinking about quitting, I hope you can find some inspiration here. If you are tapering, stay the course and keep reducing those doses as you planned. For those of you in the early cold turkey phase, the first week is usually the hardest, and you'll find it easier to sleep and relax soon. Thank you. We got our first reviews for the podcast. Pam wrote in part, quote, important content specifically for kratom addiction, unquote. Blue 8's review says in part, quote, listening to other podcasts about alcoholism looking for this exact content. Hope there's more to come, unquote. Really appreciate those remarks. And with the 5-star reviews, we are now the top rated kratom abstinence podcast. It really helps to be the only pod in that category. Also received some negative fan mail as well. One gentleman comments, I'm so proud you've been set free from a vegetable. Another person states, you are probably trying to go sober from drinking water too. Now listen, the internet is full of trolls and it is best not to feed them. But here's the reality, despite all the protests from the pro-kratom community. Kratom is a drug. No, it is not on par with heroin or opiates, but is many magnitudes more mind-altering than coffee. Many people, not all, feel a strong high or euphoria from it. Many people develop a stark tolerance and dependence and feel major withdrawals from it once they stop or decrease their use. The kratom industry insists that kratom is not addictive. I call this kratom addiction denialism. They claim any problematic kratom use is either people who are already addicts, this was not the case with Elliot in week 2, or only those using extract products. This was not the case with Logan in week 3. While it is true that a high percentage of addicts are polysubstance abusers, hanging the kratom is not addictive canard on that has significant logical fallacies. It's like saying cocaine is not addictive because the person was a meth user, or heroin is not addictive because the person has an untreated addiction to prescription opiates, or beer is not addictive because the person was hooked on wine first. So saying kratom is not addictive because the person was also addicted to X substance doesn't add up. Many of us are sick of being gaslit by being told that the substance is not addictive when that is clearly not the case. Now for the interview this week. Hello, everybody. This week we have Jess. My first interaction with Jess was after a period where I was searching the internet for help. And the only resource I thought at the time, which is a great resource, is the Quitting Kratom subreddit. It just wasn't enough. And I was doing some other things. I was listening to the General Recovery podcast. I was going to AA meetings, but I couldn't stop taking Kratom. I looked up locally for like a substance abuse group, and I was like on this waiting list with this therapist. I was going to have like this men's group on Wednesdays, and it never came to fruition. And then like about 2 weeks in my quit, I finally found quittingkratom.org, and that they had Zoom meetings. It just was great to have a place where you could talk specifically about kratom. So that's a long-winded introduction to Jess.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Jess. And so in June 8th, I'll have 15 months off of Kratom. Well, I definitely had some substance abuse issues, but with yeah, with alcohol, I definitely fell into things a little heavier as I started to grow into my like mid late 20s. It was definitely progressive. I didn't know anything about kratom yet. I had dabbled with hard opioids in my like mid late 20s, 25, 26. Um and with kratom, I was the first time I ever took it, I didn't even know what it was called. Um, it was we were looking for hard opioids,
Hmm.
whether that was Percocet or heroin, um, but we couldn't find any, and the only thing that my ex's friend had was this green powder in a bag, and said that it would feel like the opioids that we were seeking. And yeah, so my pre-kratom self was definitely, like not super happy, kind of like trying to figure out, how to navigate life with an ex that was also an addict. And when we discovered kratom, um it definitely seemed to like make things a little better, which I've heard from so many people. It just seems like it helps everything, like makes you more socially um active. And once your confidence kind of goes up, you feel these like spurts of motivation with kratom that are, I realized as time went on, were extremely short lived. And but when you first start taking kratom, you don't realize how short lived all this is. it
Yeah.
it really feels like it's enhancing life. And when I was first using kratom, I was definitely feeling pretty depressed, and like knew that my relationship was coming to an end. So right off the bat, I was using kratom as a crutch, and deep down knew it couldn't be that good for you if I had found it instead of these like hard opioids that I was seeing. I was living in New York City at this time, and once me and my ex discovered that you could buy kratom in smoke shops, that was all I really needed. I didn't fall super hard into hard drugs prior to this because I really loathed buying drugs illegally. I
Yeah.
hated dealing with drug dealers, and just the feeling I had like throughout the whole time of like seeking out drugs and trying to get them. And I hated it. I really think it saved me from like ever having a needle in my arm. But then I discovered kratom, and that was like a free for all. Like, oh my God, I could walk 2 blocks in any direction and buy this stuff, and nobody's going to ask me anything. And it's marketed as like this, you know, coffee relative, and it's super harmless, and it's safe and non-addictive. It seems like a win-win-win all around. But like I said, because of the context of how I first discovered kratom, I think deep down somewhere I knew it wasn't what they were saying. We discovered the extracts almost immediately. And it was the OPMS extracts. So those are the ones I started off with right off the bat. And to start, I was doing at least like 2 a day when I first started. For the first 6 months or so, it was like 2 a day, maybe one once in a while, but mostly two. Got off the extracts and switched to the powder when was starting to be really expensive for the extracts. The powder is definitely a lot cheaper, and those extracts were costing me a lot of money. I will say there's powder out there that is so powerful and just as effective as extracts. I've had it before. It's had me on my knees, and I was sick for like a week because of how strong this powder was. That was like authentic powder from directly from Bali, and it didn't feel like it was even tampered with, like as far as being cut with anything. it
Yeah.
it really felt just like really strong, pure kratom, which had me like nodding out the same way that, heroin had in the past, or morphine.
Yeah, I was with the same brand and with the extracts, and I can relate. Also, it might have been my past life as an Eagle Scout. I like the legal part of the kratom because, and I don't have any street smarts either. How long did you use kratom before you started saying, "Wow, this isn't working"?
I have the timeline all pretty much written out. It just
Okay,
depends, like, just depends.
roughly.
Yeah. 6 months, I want to say 6 months in, that's when I realized that the extracts were expensive. I still didn't think I had any type of an issue with kratom.
Okay,
A year into my use, I was really like, okay, I want to like cut back off of this stuff.
yeah,
I think that's when I first had like the initial thought of like, I want to like kind of, cut back from this, but didn't like do anything about it. And a year and a half in was when I really started to tell myself, like, okay, I need to stop this. It's like not good for me. And I told myself every day was going to be my last day for the next year. So I didn't actually, I was on Kratom for 2.5 years. And the last year of that 2.5 years um, was just me destroying any sense of self-esteem or self-confidence or anything that I had. Because, when you tell yourself you're going to do something every single day, and I really meant it. I didn't just say it, to like say it. Like I would make these grand plans for myself and just really really, feel like I was committing, and I would do this every single day. I mean, day in and day out for months and months and months. And yeah, it was just even thinking back to the vicious cycle that was. I'm just so grateful to like never have to live through that again, as long as I don't pick up kratom.
yeah. I did the same thing to myself. It was a little bit shorter period, but like I would just buy enough for one day, and because that was going to be the last day, and it is really eroding of self esteem and any self respect. Did you start facing consequences because of your kratom use?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I spent all my money on kratom. I really didn't have money for anything else. And those, so I relapsed. I was on kratom for 2.5 years, and I was able to stop successfully, quit for 11 months. So during that first run of 2.5 years, I spent about 100, maybe like $90,000 on kratom, and really didn't have like that kind of money to be spending on it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not a trust fund baby, and I, didn't just have like extra money to spend like that. That was all my money. Um and it came before everything. I mean, if I only had enough money for kratom or food, like I would buy kratom before I would buy food. So yeah, there was a lot of negative side effects. Definitely many that I didn't really recognize until like the very end, like I
yeah,
didn't put two and two together that like kratom was causing all these things to be going on with me. Um, but definitely like relapsing and going back, falling back into it. I was extremely aware of how sick kratom actually made me feel, and how short lived the high that I was chasing
yeah.
last.
Can you tell us more about what happened at the 11 months? I mean, personally, just at 60 days, but I'm petrified of relapsing. And just what was the process? What happened to get that much time, and then and relapse is common in addiction, so it's not something to beat us up, but something to learn from.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely learned so much from my relapses. Um, I was doing so well. Um, 11 months into that first quit, I was in a really good place in all areas of my life, like
Mm-hmm.
financially and my relationship. with my job, with friendships. I was running the Kratom group, which was really thriving at that time. Just like so many people were joining the meetings every week, and I was essentially the leader of that group, and things were just going really well. I nothing triggered me other than the thought of like everything is so nice. Like, what would make it nicer? How nice would it be to feel high right now? I really truly believed that I was going to be in control of it. That I knew enough about Kratom, and I didn't act on the thought right away. I was home. My girlfriend was at work, and the house was sparkling clean. I mean, it couldn't be more like in order.
Yeah.
And um and I had that thought, like, oh, how nice would it be to like just be high on the couch by myself right now. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't go buy Kratom that day. I bought Kratom 4 days later, and by that time, everything that kept me from buying it the 3 days leading up to that fourth day was like getting quieter and quieter, right? Like all the reasonings as to like why it would be so crazy for me to do that. And I guarantee you, Charlie, I 1000% guarantee you that if I had just reached out to my community and to my close friends who were in kratom recovery, and if I had told my girlfriend, if I had just reached out to people, even just one or two people, I'm almost positive I would have made it to a year. Maybe I would have relapsed after the year. I don't know. But I think for sure I would have made it to the year, because it just got so quiet in my mind, like the like you almost have a year, and what about the group? Like all those thoughts kept coming up, but by the fourth day it was just kind of quiet, and it was like, I think you could do it. Like I think you could go get one shot,
Yeah.
and like nobody has to know about it. And like I was saying, I really believed that I was going to be in control, that like I knew better now. When I first started taking Kratom, I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea of like how addictive it can be and all this stuff. And I just had so much knowledge now, and there was no way that it was going to get me again. And so on autopilot, I was just on my way to the smoke shop, going to buy a K shot. So when I was using extracts, it was mostly the OPMS. Into that relapse after 11 months, it was all the extracts. Like
Okay.
it was like, I mean, the next 11 months, and I'll get to that, but yeah, it was all of them. So, and it was OPMS and K shots once in a while.
What's a
I
K
really,
shot?
a K shot is an extract shot. It's like these little, they're like orange. I want to say it tastes better than the OPMS. It definitely does. Ugh, I honestly can like taste it now, and it's so nasty. They're both disgusting, but the K shot is like, it's like kind of like clear. It doesn't have that like heaviness that the OPMS have.
Okay. But it's still kratom.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a K shot. It's a kratom shot. It's called a K
Got
shot.
it. Got it. Got it.
Um, so I said I'm just gonna go get one K shot, and I calculated it once I finally like quit again. I don't really call it a quit. It was an ongoing relapse for the next 11 months, even though I was off of it for 4 months at in
Okay.
those 11 months. So I got off of it. So I go to take that shot. I take about 65 shots over the next 3 weeks. And a week and a half or 2 weeks into the relapse, I told myself, like, this seems to be getting a little bit out of control. I hide everything until I'm ready to like come clean to everybody.
Okay.
I'm a liar. I don't want anybody to know. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I'm always so inspired by people who like relapse and like come clean that day. I'm like, I don't know. At the 2 week mark, I tell myself like, you're gonna have to tell everyone. I end up using it that next day. So I know I have to tell someone. I don't know how. I can't wrap my mind around how I'm going to
Mhm.
tell this community and my girlfriend that I'm like, didn't make it to a year off Kratom, and I'm like back to day one. That same week, I was very much interested and practicing the Wim Hof method. I don't know if you're familiar. It's breath work and cold exposure. So I was actually leading like breathwork sessions after my Zoom meetings for Kratom, and whoever wanted to stay on, I would like play a recording and we would do breathwork.
Yeah.
And so I have been looking for a certified instructor in South Florida. I had been Googling one, and long story short, I end up reconnecting with somebody I'd actually met in AA when I first moved to Miami. And I hadn't seen this person in years. And we decided to link up and catch up. And one of the first things we started talking about was breath work. And now I'm like 2.5 weeks into this kratom relapse. And he's talking to me about breath work, and I ask him if he like has heard of Wim Hof, and he tells me about the Miami Ice Club, which is owned by a certified Wim Hof instructor, and they practice the Wim Hof method there on a weekly basis. And I think I saw him on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, my friend, and the next class was on Friday. So he was like, "Yeah, let's go on Friday." And it was during the breath work that I was overcome with this like profound sense of peace in knowing that the only way that I wasn't going to be okay was if I didn't come clean to everyone. It was really such a beautiful moment because I just didn't feel that before, like I didn't
Yeah.
know how I was going to tell all these people. And this I don't know, overwhelming sense of clarity that the only way like you're not going to be okay is if you keep this a secret. And it just felt right to be able to come clean to everybody. And then I stopped for about 4 months. It was like three months and 3 weeks, or almost 4 months. And my relationship with my girlfriend at that time was coming to an end. And so it was a very quick thought. I was by a smoke shop that I used to buy kratom from, and I knew the relationship was over. And I wasn't even like that upset about it. It was still upsetting because I love this person, but like we knew it was over for a while. So it was just kind of like we were, it was becoming a for sure thing. And I was like, I can go take kratom if I want to. Like,
Mhm.
I don't have to fucking answer to anybody now. And I really, once again, did not think that it was going to get me the way that it got me for the next, like, so that was September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah. So basically for like the next 6 months, it was on and off, but mostly on, I would say. It was on and off. I have like 2 weeks off of it, then I'd get back on it for 2 weeks, and by the end of it, I was up to like 5 or 6 extracts a day. I was honestly trying. I was so depressed, and it had made me so miserable. That I was really hoping that that amount of extracts was going to kill me. Um, and for a while, I had started seeing a therapist. Um, like a few months before I got sober, for good, and sober off of kratom for good. And she was telling me how back then I like didn't want to go to rehab or detox. Like I was really resistant to it, and it was because I didn't have to do it the first time around.
Yeah.
The first time around, 2.5 years of daily kratom use, and I didn't have like, yeah, it was really hard. The withdrawal was hard, and it was a struggle, and I kept, getting a few days and then taking one shot and getting a few days, and then finally, just by some miracle, stringing enough days together to like pee clean and go into a sober living, which isn't, it's, you still like live life. You're not like in a rehab facility locked away. Um, but I couldn't even string these days together, but I was so resistant. Like my mind and my ego and my pride was just like, are you kidding? Like I didn't have to go the first time, and I'm on kratom for such a shorter period of time now.
Mhm.
Like why would I have to go to detox? What a waste. By the end of February, um I was probably saying that to my therapist like in January, February, end of
Yeah.
February. I am begging my mom, her husband, my brother, I mean, anybody I possibly could to pay the like $4,000 to go to an 8-day detox program. Um, I had no way out. Um, I don't think I would have been able to stop. And I think I would have either like ended up killing myself or, dying in one way or another. But I did go to that detox, and yeah, it was definitely.
And that was March of 2022.
Yep, I went into detox on the night of March 7th, but it was technically already March 8th. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've heard from multiple people that have relapsed that the quits later on were harder and worse, and just as you
I
described.
was pretty much mostly in Florida the whole time, except for the beginning of my kratom, like the start of my kratom use was in New York, and then I was pretty much in Miami the whole time. I spent some time in LA and bought kratom out there, but I was mostly in South Florida.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the Midwest, and I just this is kind of a sidebar. We don't have like kratom bars or kava bars. Did you ever get involved in that activity?
I didn't. Nope.
Okay.
I was such like an isolated kratom user.
Yeah, same here. I used by myself. It wasn't a social thing. So this time around, what kind of supports did you put in place to maintain your sobriety?
Charlie, I don't think it was any type of support. I never want to feel that sick ever again. I have relapsed with alcohol and other drugs over the last 15 months.
Hmm.
Um I knew I was really done with kratom when I got super drunk, and I have substance induced psychotic disorder, so I literally become somebody different. I become a person with like a mental disorder when I drink. Not always, but like that there's a shift that happens, and it's just no longer me. Like my soul is possessed and it's not me. And when I didn't buy kratom in that state of mind, because kratom and alcohol always went hand in hand. If I drank,
Okay.
I was going to use kratom, and if I used kratom, I drank because kratom made me feel so shitty. If I was trying not to use kratom, I used the alcohol to alleviate the withdrawal from the kratom, and vice versa. Um, but when I came out of that relapse, it was like a 12-day run. Um, and this wasn't that long. Yeah, that's right. I went into rehab. I went into the detox program in March 8th, and I relapsed with alcohol like sometime in mid-April. So it really wasn't that much longer after. It's not like I was like away for 6 months and I was like, okay, but the hell that I went through getting off of kratom that last time is is the support that I needed to never put that drug into my body ever again. And that's why I tell people, like, I have close friends they'll struggle, they're relapsing, people in my group, I get close with them. And I literally tell them, I'm like, I hope that you are in hell on fucking earth going through this. I hope it is so damn horrible for you that you never want to feel that way again, because that's what did it for me, you know? It just got so terrible. And obviously, showing up for my support group and keeping those meetings going, and doing whatever I can to try to help other people definitely helps. So,
'Cause-
I'm working on a book.
okay.
I'm writing a book that's going to have my story with kratom, uh from start to finish, and it'll also include some other stories. I have people who have submitted their stories to me, and if anybody who listens to this wants to share their story, it can be as long or as short as you'd like. You can email quittingkratom@gmail, and definitely submit your story, so that it could be in the book as well.
How would you describe your life today? with a 15 months almost kratom free?
It's night and day. It is. I dreaded the day on Kratom. I dreaded the sunlight. It stole the light from my life, literally. Like I did not I everything felt eventually, right? It wasn't always like this, but it got to the point where eventually everything felt like a chore. Everything, just getting out of bed felt like a chore. And you know, like looking forward to the sun going down so that it would be dark. I spent a lot of my time sleeping and feeling sick,
Hmm.
especially, towards that last run. It was just a daily misery. And today, one of my favorite times of day is the sunrise. I love catching the sunrise. I'm sad when I don't catch it. I'm waking up early. Like, I'm a morning person 100%. I've actually realized I am a morning person, but getting up early doesn't come naturally to me like it does for other people, even though I love being up and I'm super productive once I'm up. So if I like miss the sunrise, I'm upset, well, not upset, but I just, it's something that I really look forward to. And that's just completely different than the type of life I was living when I was on Kratom. I'd go to
Yeah.
bed at like 9, 10 p.m. and I'd sleep until 10, which is 12 hours. Some days I was sleeping 15, 18 hours. So, yeah, today my life is really active. I'm in the best shape that I've ever been in. Going to the gym was a life changer, as I'm sure everybody who starts going to the gym can agree.
Hmm. Well, I'm going to ask for some advice here. With this podcast, I've been worried maybe I've been a little bit too public with my recovery. Do you have any suggestions to about self care and how to make sure we keep growing and guard, while you're in the public like this and kind of recovering out loud? What can we do to, you know, maintain our personal growth and make sure we stay on this path?
Well, I don't know that. I think it just depends on the person. I mean, I'm pretty public with my recovery stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so um I don't particularly think that. I think, if you're using your experience, your strength and your hope to try to help other people in a positive way. I understand that with kratom, there are some people that are just going to be vile and nasty, and I've actually had people like that who've come to my meeting and they've told me that they used to be like the pro kratom people. And it really just goes to show that they're so deep in denial they can't see it themselves. So when people like that, comment or reach out, I honestly, I don't give them much of my energy. If I answer them at all, I put something like, like you can read through some of the comments on the Kratom awareness page, but I'll just be like, oh, like I'll respond to whatever they said, and say like, kratom is a drug. Like I'm just gonna keep saying that, like I'm not, I'm just a super blatant, like I'm gonna tell you what it is and you can like choose to believe me or not, or keep responding, but I'm you the key is to like filter out those people and really know that what you're doing is right and not let them get to you.
A couple more questions. What is your best advice for someone getting ready to quit?
One of my number one things I think everybody should do is write like a breakup letter to Kratom,
Hmm.
listing all the reasons why they want to be done with that relationship, and just like just like you would write a breakup letter, just kind of cutting those ties and showing yourself, why it is you're doing what you're doing. I would go to meetings every single day. People make a lot of excuses, and you don't know how many people I've had in my community who are struggling and they're reaching out. I don't know what to do, but I never see them at a meeting. They're, I'm doing this. It's about making your recovery a priority, and that's all it is at the end of the day. How much effort are you going to put into your recovery? So, yeah, I think that's a good start.
Are you involved in any self help groups outside the Kratom specific meetings?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been a member of AA since 2017. 2000, yeah, 16,
Okay.
17. Mm-hmm.
Have you found a space at AA to talk about Kratom, or do you just kind of talk about your drugs in general?
When I There was definitely a period of time where when I was really struggling with kratom, I mentioned kratom in every single share. And
Yeah.
when I was chairing a meeting weekly, I also talked about kratom. So I try to talk about kratom as much as I can. I don't care what kind of a meeting it is, what their rules are. I used to sit in AA and raise my hand and count my days while I was taking kratom in the bathroom. So if there's someone like that sitting in the meeting and they hear me and I'm a voice for them to recognize that what they're doing isn't okay, like I will take that chance every time. That's not to say like a lot of people don't know what kratom is. Maybe
Yeah.
in South Florida they do a little bit more because it's so much everywhere and there are these kava kratom bars all over the place. So maybe people in meetings here like know about it a little bit more than other places, but still for the most part, a lot of people I talk to about kratom don't know what it is. So yeah, I try to spread as much awareness as I can.
There's people that do cold turkey, and then there's people that are taperers. I'm a cold turkey kind of person. What do you do, and do you have any recommendations around what's the best way? I mean, it is a personal choice, but
Yeah, so for me, I could have never tapered. I simply could absolutely never taper. If I'm the type of person who told myself every day for the last year that it was going to be my last day, that means if I told myself I was going to taper and it was sitting in my counter and I ended up, buying the case of OPMS and if I actually, for some reason, after I quit, I looked up how much a box of the OPMS would cost if I bought the whole box because I was always buying them individually. And they would come out to like $12, $13 a shot, which is significantly less than,
yes.
20, 25 sometimes a shot. I mean, it's a big difference. I would have spent just as much money on Kratom if I had bought those boxes. I would have spent the same amount of money that I did buying the individual ones, and I would have just taken probably double or triple the kratom. So that's the kind of addict. I know there's people who can taper successfully, maybe under the right circumstances. Like if I had a really supportive partner but again, I'm a liar. So
Yeah.
I really don't think so. Like when I'm in active addiction, I am a liar. So if I'm using and I want to take a little bit more, I'm going to justify it and I'm not going to tell you, you know? So, so for me, I personally could never. I also think that tapering kind of just like prolongs the withdrawal process because when I quit that first time around and I was constantly like, I got 4 days and then I took a shot. If I had and I did that for like 3 weeks. If I had just not taken a shot and made it to day 5 and day 7, by day 10, I would have felt better. But for the next 3 weeks, I felt like perpetual withdrawal because I just kept taking enough to keep me in withdrawal, which obviously I wasn't, in my addict mind. That's not what I was thinking back then, but that's what it did. It kept me
Yeah.
in withdrawal longer than I needed to be. So I personally think that everyone's better off just, biting the bullet and getting through it.
I'm that school of thought. The I had the same thing. I looked up buying them by the case, and I bought a different product. They were honey packs, and then there were like 12 in them, and that there was a much less kratom in them. But I went through them very quick when I had 12 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Drove a little bit farther, I could get them at a better deal. It was only like 5 or 10 minutes, but once I started when I was high, I just went to the one that was really close, even though it cost $20 a shot. But if I drove a little bit farther, I could get two for 30. That's
Yeah,
how insane the
100%.
addiction.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, come on here again and like we can get into some of my stories about like the specific things that I did, to get kratom and the insanity that I lived in. So,
Oh, yeah, a couple more questions. This is more of a fun one. Do you have a go-to song when you're having a bad day?
not really a go-to song. I would need to take a look at my playlist.
Okay.
I like songs that have positive lyrics, like there's a song called Grateful. um just yeah, songs that have positive dialogue, because a lot of the stuff that we listen to can be like sad or depressing, and it goes into our psyche and could stay with us, whereas something else might be more uplifting. So I definitely just try to listen to more uplifting type songs.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
No, I think I just want to, wish everybody out there who may be struggling with kratom, to let them know that they're not alone and that there is support out there. Charlie has a meeting on Thursday evenings. I have a meeting every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And you're not alone, and you can get through this, because if I could get through the hell that I went through, I'm convinced anybody can get through this.
Honor, I've printed some 3D coins, and to send the very first 1 year kratom free coin. Can I send it to
Oh
you?
my god, of course. You're so sweet, Charlie. I would love that. Nobody's gotten that for me. I would love that.
All right.
Thank
What
you
an
so
honor.
much.
Now for kratom in the news. This week, Forbes Health published an article, What is Kratom? Uses, Side Effects, and More. I found it refreshing as it was not just a love letter to the substance, and it clearly outlined the risks and dangers. The piece could use some edits. It ended suggesting all kratom users, quote, get treatment very soon, unquote. That's like saying all alcohol drinkers should go to AA. Otherwise, I welcome a mainstream publication increasing the public's awareness about the dangers of kratom. I also want to say it was very brave of Jess to talk so openly about spending so much money on kratom over a couple of years. She's not alone. I've heard many stories of people spending tens of thousands of dollars on kratom in short amounts of time. I'm still in shock personally. I spent nearly $3,000 on it in just 10 weeks earlier this year. This is an area where the kratom industry has a major conflict of interest. If they embrace the truth that kratom is addictive and they took steps to ethically self regulate their products, that would result in a big dent in sales. These extracts, like OPMS or Feel Free, where people spend so much on them at some level, this is a predatory business practice. To illustrate, in the study, How Dependent is the Alcohol Industry on Heavy Drinking in England, which was an article published in Addiction in 2018, the researchers found that, quote, the heaviest drinking 4% of the population account for 30% of all consumption and 23% of all industry income, unquote, in the UK. Let me say that again. Just 4% of English alcoholics generate nearly a quarter of booze sales revenue. I believe there are similar dynamics in the kratom industry in the US. Problematic kratom users generate large profits for corporations selling extracts. At the very same time, they market and promote these products as non addictive. It seems a little sketchy to me. And don't bother sending in comments about how kratom powder costs less than $1 a day if you buy it by the kilo. It is not a very clever thing to say, and it proves nothing. In fact, it is like telling a family member who has alcoholism that if they go to Costco, they can buy a case of beer at a great price and it will last all month. Resource of the week. If you'd like to get in touch with Jess for more information about the Zoom meetings or the WhatsApp group, or to contribute to her book, please contact her at quittingkratom@gmail.com. Jess talked about the Wim Hof Method. I'm learning more about this breathing practice myself, but I've seen many others suggest it for being helpful when kicking kratom. The Wim Hof Method is a combo of specific breathing techniques, cold exposure, and meditation developed by Dutch extreme athlete Wim Hof, also known as the Iceman. It aims to improve physical and mental well-being, increase energy levels, and strengthen the immune system. The technique involves deep breathing and rhythm. These exercises are followed by periods of holding the breath, gradually exposing oneself to cold temps, and practicing meditation. The method stems from a belief that consciously controlling the body's physiological responses, individuals can achieve better health and performance. How can the Wim Hof method be helpful in quitting kratom? One, the breathing exercises can help regulate the nervous system, reducing anxiety and stress, which many of us feel while we are detoxing. Additionally, the method promotes mindfulness and mental focus, which can assist in overcoming cravings and staying committed to quitting. Cold exposure can stimulate the release of endorphins and promote feelings of well-being, helping to counteract the discomfort and low mood we experience when withdrawing from kratom. To date, all I have been able to personally muster is running a hot bath, but taking a long cold shower before getting into the hot tub. Early on, this was one of the few things that gave me relief. I will put links about Wim Hof and the news discussed earlier in the show notes. That's it for this week. To celebrate a Kratom anniversary, or if you want to share something for a future episode, please leave a voicemail at 313-437-7720 or send an email or audio file to kratomsobriety@gmail.com. We are also at Kratom Sobriety on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Until next week, keep it kratom free.